All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Today is June 12th, 2026. And again, this is the audio edition to the Daily Trade Strategy Briefing. NFA compliance, Rule 2-29C, subparagraph 1. You're all familiar with the risks associated with trading. The big event for today, as you all know, is the SpaceX IPO. Apparently, it's the biggest one in history. I think the prior largest one, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Aramco, and I think that was at 29 billion, and this one's in excess of 70 billion on the IPO. So priced at 135 per share. I don't know if anybody grabbed any of those or put in for some. I did not, but it should be fun today. The symbol on that is SPCX. So unless if you want to monitor, make sure you have it on your other, on your stock systems. So it'll be fun to watch, see how it is. It's interesting about IPOs, and I've been involved in IPOs over the years, trading them directly as a market maker in the NASDAQ area. What's interesting about those is there's no price history. So think about it. When we trade, we're looking at, pivot highs, pivot lows, and measurements and everything else that we do, right? From a technical analysis perspective, charting perspective. There is no history on an IPO. So it's purely, you know, uh, filling order flow, probing for, how far somebody is willing to pay, somebody is willing to sell, somebody's willing to step in and buy those sellers, and vice versa. So it's probably the purest type of trading that could be, because there is no history. You're creating with every trade, literally you're creating brand new history, right? Um, so I found trading IPOs back in the day uh, just wonderful. I loved it, right? I loved it. Why? You, you're not encumbered. There's no limit to the upside. There's no limit to the downside that's been created. I'm talking about like very early in the process. Once it opens, okay. Um, and it's all pure. When I say pure, I mean no history, right? Supply and demand. My favorite, I love anytime an IPO is coming. I always put my hat in. I want to trade it. I want to be the market maker trading it. And I had my share, but I never did all of them. But they were fun, right? So it's going to be interesting. I don't know exactly if it's going to open exactly at 9:30. A lot of times they it's ready to go, but they may not necessarily open it exactly at 9:30. Maybe today they said it's not going to open at 9:30. Okay, so so yeah, so that they get all the final stuff that they are doing to make sure the systems are there, and all the initial they collect what's called IOIs. An IOI is called an indication of interest, an IOI. So they collect all their IOIs, make sure they're on the book so nobody misses an IOI. Hey, I had an IOI at this price and I didn't get filled, type of thing. So make sure they have all that stuff. So all that goes into, you know, finally, opening it up. And opening it up is simply print the first trade. And most of the time, the first trade is a collection of, all the IOIs buy and sell right on the inside bid offer. Okay, and then what they do is they're mostly market orders anyway. So what they'll do is they'll just select the price, It's almost like a market on close. The way it's handled, it's like quick market on open, where even though you got market orders on both sides, they're setting up a price point for entry, and then they just pair those off right at that price point. So it's kind of similar to a market on close. And then once those initial orders at those levels, at that specific limit point, then it just begins to just free trade, and that's really kind of how it's done. So it's pretty very efficient, the way it handles. Now, of course, that was a day where we were doing things manually. Well, we had a computer, but not like today's algorithms, the way things work. So it'll be interesting. Anyways, I'm going to obviously be a spectator, so we'll take a look at that. In terms of today, it is a cycle day 3. You can read the daily trade strategy. Initial targets overnight that I outlined last night, up to the 74.45s, all fulfilled. 3-day cycle targets fulfilled. Okay, so what do we call this type of day? You got it. We call it a wild card day. Okay, and it may be wild, but I don't know. So we call it a wild card day, just meaning that all the targets, or at least not all the targets, but the core 3-day cycle target, which is down here, have been fulfilled. And now the market just kind of, free flowing on its own. As always, we want to stay in alignment, right? Just do everything that we do on a daily basis. Nothing changes. All right. But this cycle ran about 194 points. So we'll mark that as a super cycle. And again, my term, not a Taylor measurement, but my term, my measurement about a super cycle is that the range from low to high um, exceeds 150 points, and went like 194 so far. So super cycle indeed, um, courtesy of whatever, you know, right? Again, the market gets oversold. Maybe again, looking back, maybe some of the selling, was a point of raising capital for these IPOs, today. Who knows? But the market gets oversold, it gets overbought, extended, and then you get everybody that gets, wrong-footed, on the short side, right? Long puts, and then the market, reverses. So here we are. Um, we'll be online here till noontime today. It's going to be a hot one, and let's see what we can get accomplished, my friends. All right, feel free to participate. I always like the interaction. The D level this morning, all right, for you early birds, we had an early bird special with the D level getting tagged and reversed. First target down at the prior high fulfilled, and a little bit of an extended below that. All right, so for you early birders, and also the cycle day 3 penetration targets, again, were also fulfilled along with that. All right. The early bird, yeah, the early birders, early bird special. Yep, very nice. Yeah, early bird special. All right, market's going to open in a moment. Uh, let's see how we handle it. Okay, on the opening range scene, we had a crude oil opening, again, that's the July contract. We'll be rolling that Monday as well. First target fulfilled and got stopped out on the trailer. All right. And today, just as a reminder, okay, today is Capital Preservation Day. All right. I always put that little note up there. And again, you know the reason. If you've had a very good week, protect what you've done. You don't have to push it at the end of the week. If you haven't had a good week or if you struggled, again, don't push it where where you are trying to make things back. Okay, you take the long view. If you're upset with your performance, or again, just reassess what you've done, how you've made your decisions. Review that over the weekend. Don't try to make anything back here right on a Friday. Right? Um, so just keep that in mind. I can't tell you, and again, I've had personal experience on this that you know um, I've tried to push things occasionally at the end of the week, and for some strange reason, the market just doesn't like to cooperate, and then you end up on the short side of the stick when choosing those sticks, right? The short and the long sticks. I always end up on the short side of the sticks. So always take measured approaches. Take the long view. All right. So like I said, today's somewhat of a wild card day. Um, we're right here, after the overnight movement, uh, right here at the VWAP. So we'll just give the market some time to work through it, what it wants to do, how it wants to approach this today. All right. So the early lean. All right, we'll call the early lean still on the sell side. So let me just post that up. So early lean favoring sell side. Okay. All right, so price, a little back test there, prior close. So again, if you took that early bird special, you had first target out at the prior high. Second target could easily been either trailing, trailing your a short position, perhaps down to the prior close, or some measured level that you've selected, right, as a particular target, right. So again, remember that those are the type of things that um, you know you kind of need to research, right? But the kind of the basic target, from the D level would be back to the prior high or low, and then you could take a measured move from there, right? So again, however you want to do it, right? Take a measured move from the distance of D level to prior high in this case, and then take another measured move, right, for a second target, okay? And then if you have a third, contract, maybe you use a runner, kind of management, right? There's no right or wrong. It's how you want to do it, right? That's why, and again, when I get queried about, well, what are the targets? Well, what are the higher probability? The idea of the targets. Again, we'll just kind of do this for the recording, right? But here's my D level money box chart, right? Okay, so if you take a short from the D level here, okay, well, this is the prior high, so you take your measurement, right? You also want to find out, what's the maximum favorable, right, excursion. So how do you do that? You know how to do that. We've talked about this numerous times. You go back and say, well, when this occurred, how far did it move in favor? How far did it move against? Right? So that's the maximum adverse excursion, right? And so forth and so on. So again, you have to do the research. All right. So I'm not going to, belabor that point. I think everybody understands that. But I get the same questions all the time. You just got to do the research. You should know the targets that you want to um, go after. I can only give you the guideline of, kind of ways to approach it. I can't give you the answer. Not that I don't want to give you the answer, but that's how I was taught. And so that's how I teach. Do the work. All right. So we'll find our little way here. Again, waiting for that IPO to open. But that's really not going to affect what we do anyways. But it'll be fun to watch. All right. So, early sandbox, maybe down here at the 95s, 20s. Yeah, well, again, the target guidelines, I've given you the kind of the formula of how to go about doing that. It's just a matter of, going back and looking for the same type of, um, same type of trade. You want to compare the same type of trade. So if we're talking, D-level money box, okay, then you got to compare, you know, each and every one of those. Oh, something just happened here. Market just kind of took a header here. crude oil snapped up. Is the deal off again? You know, it's funny. I was talking to my wife last night about the Iran thing. It's like you know that commercial with the table lamp, right? Clap on, clap off. It's like clap on, clap off. Deal on, deal off. All right, there you go. Me and my yellow horizontal line. John's horizontal line. Excellent. We're getting all these, what we used to call them, tweet bombs years ago. I don't know what you want to call those Truth Social ones now, but basically tweet bombs again. So that was a POTUS tweet bomb that went out there. But guess what? Probably more times than not, if we're on the correct side of the current lean, even if there's a tweet bomb, it's probably going to be in our favor, right? So, and even if it isn't, okay, occasionally, but it seems as though a lot of these tweet bombs are always in. They seem to be a large percentage of them, anyways. You know, are in our favor. You know, are in our favor. Yeah, Sierra's reloading data here, so I gotta wait for that. Everybody else is frozen or just mine? Is Sierra chart frozen? Okay, so everybody's Sierra chart seems to be frozen. Okay. All right. Well, at least it's not my issue. It's everybody's issue. All right. It looks like it's just reloading data here. John's okay. Okay. You're on a different server then. Okay. All right. Maybe just affected a few. We'll let it reset. Oh, and that's why I've always made it a point for us, particularly those that visit. Okay, our visitors, do not trade off of my charts. And there's, you know, for anybody that doesn't have their own charts within the membership, do not trade off of my charts. Okay, that is a stated disclaimer that I've put out there for many years. Right, do not trade off of my charts. All right, again, for this reason, if we get a a latency issue or a data blackout or something, whatever, if you're trading off my charts, you're trading off of stale data. So don't do it. Don't do it, man. I say, don't do it. All right. Yeah, I see all the calculations. Don't do it. Just don't do it. All right. I have no control over that. So we'll just have to wait for that to come back. My ninja seems to be good. Bruce's ninja was having issues. My ninja seems to be good today. It's Sierra's having an issue now. Yeah. Might be time for a new PC. I don't know. Well, the current quote right now on the ES is 73.75. It looks as though the last sale on my charts are good, but they're not moving smoothly. So again, don't trade off my charts. It's all I can caution you on. All right. Uh, the early trade, if you grabbed it, again with my charts there, I don't know, it didn't trigger. Was that premium up by the 7400s? Low battery? You're not hardwired? Be sure you're hardwired connected, not a battery. All right, so again, let's talk about the 3-day cycle for a moment. Okay, so we have cycle day 3, prices pushed above the cycle day 2 high, correct? So push above the cycle day 2 high. I'm looking on the left side chart here, right? Up to the penetration level, right? And the D levels here. And then the reversal back down through the prior high, okay? Again, that is a structural setup for a continuation short, right? And again, if you've missed that structure, if you missed that idea, go back and review the 3-day cycle. It's on this. It's on actually the sheet. That is the one of the core scenarios for a reversal on cycle day 3, right? Yeah, I think that's an old wives' tale there, John. No pun intended. It's an old wives' tale. All right, I'm just making a note about the 3-day cycle stuff that I just mentioned. Yeah, sorry to hear that one, but all right. All right, so again, the lean is to the short side, right? As we did I post that? I know oh yeah, we did post that. Early lean favoring sell side. Good. I want to make sure I post what I'm talking about. So just because we have a lean, it doesn't necessarily mean you're in on a trade. It's just we want to know what side to kind of be favoring, right? But part of using the 3-day cycle is one, knowing what day cycle we're on, but what's the implications of that cycle? What would be, again, we talk about scenarios. What would be an expected scenario? Okay. Remember, let the market, you trade the market, don't let the market trade you. Okay. In other words, have some sort of an idea that, hey, if this happens, you know, what would be that implication? What would I want to see? What would we would need to see for a certain scenario to unfold? Right. So I'm describing this one, the perfect cycle day 3 push above the cycle day 2. I meant to say high there. Let me just edit that. High and reversal back below, aka our peekaboo, right? Sets the rotational decline in motion. All right. So again, the idea there coming in today was, is there something actionable, you know, in that area around the high or the D level? And then when we get this shift to the lean, to the short lean, again, that's essentially kind of the structural trigger shift. All right. So just kind of make notes of it. That's all, and whether you did something or not, just make a note of it. It's going to happen again. All right. Back down to where are we? 70th, 75. All right. Little chunk of volume around here. So let's see if the market kind of tries to set something. Um, might want to look at keep an eye on 65s over here. So if you look at a dynamic D level, right? So go from this low, all right, to the overnight high. That brings us down to around 63, 64, 65 in that area where that D level is. Dynamic D level. All right. So overnight low, is that the overnight low? Yeah, overnight low was it 14s? So no, what am I looking at? 74s. I'm sorry. My glasses. I need new glasses again. 74, not 14. So again, expected buy response here. Let's see if we get a rally here. Get a expected sell would be around, again, a little bit further up around the 06s. Is that a statement or a question? Are you asking for confirmation of that? What are you asking exactly? I outlined this as well. This low, this high, right? Extended below the low. There's your D level, dynamic D level, right? Around 63s, right? So we're both, again, keep something in mind. If it doesn't hit the D level exactly, okay? If it doesn't hit the D level exactly, but we're below the low, all right? What are we looking for? All right? You're looking for a reclaim of the low. Doesn't have to hit the dynamic D level as long as you're below the low or above the high. All right, it's still kind of a PKB. All right, style type trade. So that's a dynamic D level. All right, meaning you're doing the measurement. All right, you're measuring from low to high. Right, down below that. So yeah, I pointed that out. So yep, as long as y'all recognize it, that's all. Again, got to do the measurement. You had the volume down. Shouldn't have the volume down. It should be on high. That means you don't want to hear me. I like that Rev Ninja Turtle. All right, looking for a short play against the 810 level here. See if it kind of stops. It's right around the VWAP. See if the VWAP kind of holds it as well, or if they decide they want to blast through that too. You know. That didn't last too long. At least a partial entry or partial fill. Oh, 72, 74, 650. 99. Get the 99. Oh, man. Holy moly. Jesus, two ticks. Man, I'll tell you, prices run, multiple points, and then when you're trying to get something, they freaking miss you by a tick or two. Unfucking believable. Excuse my French. Oh man, amazing. Just amazing. One, I think that is one. Yeah, one freaking tick. Unbelievable. Now I'm talking to myself on a trade. Missed one of my targets by one freaking tick. Amazing. All right, so down to again the overnight low, right? Peekaboo low, back up. There you go. They rip it back up. So you know what? You know where they want to. You know where they want to do this. Right? It's not. That's none of this is a short. I mean, it's short early on that early shift from the D level, but then when we get down to that prior low, the overnight low, that's not a short anymore. All right, so we'll get back to the long side here on a dip, and we'll just kind of rotate with the shifts. Still waiting on the SpaceX IPO. All right, so right now bulls need to get back above the prior high at the 20s. Um, Again, kind of the lower part of the sandbox. I'm kind of looking at about 95s to 7400s. Again, just kind of the lower part of the sandbox. Momentum has the buy, so we'll stay with the buy lean for the time being. All right, on the long side, on the 810 side, keep in mind that's around 74 or 98 to 74 in that area. If you're looking for a long there. 174 indication. That's pretty nice, right? Did anybody get any SpaceX? Did anybody apply for any? I did not. Probably should have, but I didn't. Throw it in my IRA. I did not, though. All right, guys, I'm just hanging out here. I'm not doing much of anything at the moment. Just, yeah, there we go. That's what I wanted. Oh, where the hell did it go? Search. Come on. 55937. Kind of shut out today so far. That's a good one. Yeah, John, you got the D level right on your chart. D level is correct. Jimbo, how about yourself? If Jimbo's still here, is your D level correct? All right, so I just kind of posted a little note here. Again, I haven't been doing much talking. Probably a lot of dead air today on the recording. Sorry about that. You may have to advance the recording pretty quickly on today's. Just I haven't didn't have a lot much to say here back and forth. But yeah, so we're back at the 74.45s per our briefing outline. So again, targets have retested to the upside. So we'll need to get bulls need to get now. Again, kind of clearing that. Looks like they are still waiting for the green light for the SpaceX opening. So in the meantime, market's just kind of doing its own thing. In advance of that, advanced decliners are really doing pretty well today. Just overall looking at the internals, advancing issues 71% versus 26%. Advances versus decliners. So again, all very, very, and the same thing with advancing volume and new highs. Interestingly, we don't really talk about new highs, but it is a metric. New highs, 157 new highs versus 16 new lows. So that's 91% new highs versus 9% new lows on the day. So again, and I don't know what those new highs and which categories those are in, but again, all supportive of this backdrop of buying, right? So again, aside from the early opening move lower off the D level, essentially the market's been leaning to the long side since then, since it retested the overnight low. Oh, let's see. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're above the prior high. Just again, just kind of maintaining this long position here. We're about 1 hour 50 minute into the session. I don't think there's any gems today in today's session, but just holding the context of longs um, for today. Again, being a cycle day three, all the targets, initial cycle targets been hit. So we referred to this day as kind of a wild card day, a pullback to test the overnight low. Also, if you take a look here um, on our charts on the left, again that decline pushed down into, again, it was kind of matching with that overnight low, but a cycle day one range projection as well down at 73.74. So that's a range projection. So in other words, that would be the projected range going into for tomorrow or for cycle day one. And that's measured from the cycle day three high. So that's a historical range projection, right? So it did hit that as well. So what does that mean? Right? That means that if this was a cycle day one, this would be the average decline projection. That's what that level stands for. That's, kind of level one, right? Level two, right? We have two levels. So level one is that would be the average decline projection measured from the cycle day three high. If it was cycle day one, does that make sense to everybody who's still with us? Right? And then, of course, the secondary level would be a bit lower. Right? So what does this mean for us? It means that if this was a cycle day one, so the average decline, remember, once the targets are hit off of a cycle day three, okay, we're looking for then a decline to begin. Does not have to, it'll do what it wants, but we're looking for the decline to begin to unfold. Now, if the decline continues to unfold deeper, again, the question would be, what would be the average decline if it were a cycle day one? And this is kind of, the operative phrase, if it were a cycle day one. Well, we can measure that because we can look at the historical ranges from cycle day three to the prior cycle day ones and at least make a projection based upon the most recent historicals that if the market, as the market is declining off of a cycle day three high, what would be the average decline if it were a cycle day one? But since it's not a cycle day one, we're kind of making it a what if it was. Okay. And then what happens there, as it did today, okay, we can use that, not only that it was a prior overnight low, okay, which it just happens to correspond to. It may not correspond to it that way, but it did today. But the idea is if price reached an average cycle day one decline, but on cycle day three, and it holds, we use that as an opportunity for a potential long for some sort of tradable bounce or bounce and then rally again. We don't know if it's going to rally like it did, but so that becomes kind of an actionable area, right, where the projected low would be for a cycle day one, though it's happening on a cycle day three. Hopefully that's clear. Sometimes it gets a little muddy, the idea of that, but so what if we keep going higher? Yeah, just stay in alignment. I mean, there's not a Remember, we're not on a cycle day one technically, so you know the cycle day three ranges still apply, right? So if we take a look at this right in here, so the possible high, right, right. So the possible high that's measured off of the cycle day three low, right? So that's the range. That this is a cycle day three range projection. Okay. So what you said doesn't hold. Yeah. So if this holds, so if we come down to these cycle day one projection, okay, and hold like we did, right, and we look and we look for a reversal play. So now you get now you get to the long play, right? So at that point, you're just kind of staying in alignment with whatever's happening now, through the remainder of the day, or whatever period you're in on that. Okay, that's all what it means. It means is if this was a cycle day one low and it held, what would we be looking to do on a cycle day one? What we're just trying to do is we're trying to take that decline, which would be anticipated on a cycle day one, but it's not happening on a cycle day one, and kind of moving it forward a little bit, right? So if this were to hold, and of course we see that it has, but if it were to hold truly on a cycle day one, what would we be looking for on a cycle day one? We'd be looking for some sort of, reversal indication, a move up, first pullback, kind of staying with whatever the trend, right? Yeah. Well, right. Exactly. We'd be looking for a low. But if there's a low potentially in, we don't know the actual low till cycle day one is ended. What we're doing here is we're making some inferences. We're making some assumptions. Okay, we don't have there's no cycle day one fact low except for the one we are, this current cycle, which is much lower. But what we're doing here is we hit a high, we got a decline off the high, the cycle day three high. So as this was moving down earlier this morning, all right, the question would be, what would be, again, based upon cycle concept, what would be the average decline? Okay, if it were cycle day one coming off the cycle day three high. Remember, the cycle day one is always measured, the ranges I'm talking about, the historical ranges are always measured off the cycle day three high. So the assumption here is there's your cycle day three high. Now, obviously, if we go further above that, it's going to be a new cycle day three high. Okay, but the initial cycle day three high, hence the decline from that level, we can now ask the question as it's on its way down, what would be an average decline from a cycle day three high if it were a cycle day one? You got to kind of have to wrap that around, the way I'm phrasing it. It's not double talk, all right? It's just you got to visualize it that a cycle day one average decline is always measured from cycle day three high, right? So this morning we had an early high, right? And then we had a decline. Okay, so now what you could have said is, well, this decline could go and retest the overnight low, and absolutely true from an overnight low reference perspective. But if you're asking a question relative to the cycle perspective, what you're asking then is where would be the cycle day one average decline? So how do you find that? Go to your spreadsheet and look at a cycle day one and look for what is the average decline on a cycle day one. That's why I always suggest for those that have the subscription, save your spreadsheets. You can go back and reference them. So you look at the average decline and say, okay, the most recent average decline is X. Well, I can take that number from the previous average decline and at least make a projection from the current cycle day 3 high. Though it's not a cycle day 1, we can make it, that's why we're making an inference, right? If it were a cycle day 1, what is the average decline from the cycle day 3 high? So that's all what this is about. And then that's how you get some sort of projected, zone. And then it becomes, you kind of work that in with what's happening during, the current session overall. And of course, in this case, it retested, the overnight low, right? And then, a PKB type trade, right? It just so happens that it's matching the projection for a cycle day 1 low. It may not have, but this time it did. So, just because they're very near to a match doesn't mean it's always going to be the case. But the point is, um, I guess for everybody, the initial reference would be the overnight low, more so than the cycle day 1 projection low. But interestingly enough, today it just happens to be that way. And whether you use, the cycle day 1 low projection or the overnight low, actual low, and then the PKB style trade or structure, doesn't matter what you're using, right? The core of it is that we're recognizing that the price went down to a key reference area, it held, reversed, and again, of course, this is on a 30-minute chart. So then you drill over to your execution charts, and then you just start staying in alignment with, the current, move, however way it's going to go. In this case, we're getting in that, continuation rally after the deep pullback. Remember, it's all about staying in alignment anyways, right? We're just trying to, in this case, we're just trying to look at what would be, some key levels that the market would, if it hit down to those levels and we got some sort of a response, in this case, a buy response, we're not surprised that, I wouldn't be shorting them down there on a break of that low, the overnight low. The expectation is to hold that low and then look to align to it, as it shifted. But if it didn't hold that low, it kind of bounced up and then rotated back down, then yeah, it probably would be expectation for a deeper downside. But that's not the initial assumption on retesting of lows and highs. The initial assumption on the first touches, remember the first touches is to get some sort of rejection response, tradable, that is. All right. So I wanted to add that in because, of course, now we have a higher cycle day 3 high, and also the range projection now at 59.50 has been fulfilled. Again, that is the cycle day 3 range. And again, you look on your spreadsheets, you measure that from the low. What's that range projection? What the indicator does here, it does it automatically. It adjusts, the range is the same, but it adjusts the point from where it's being measured dynamically. But you measure it from the low, and then you should get 59.50. All right, I'm going to end the stream there. I know there was a lot of dead air earlier. Hopefully I filled in a little bit there with that explanation. We're going to continue on. Again, we are, long biased here, and we're going to stay that way until there's some sort of shift. But again, we know Fridays tend to be, generally tend to have a bullish lean overall. We're still in an uptrend. We're still in a larger degree, uptrend. Yes, we're in some sort of a corrective mode, But even in a corrective mode, we'll get, you know, rallies again, and we would just, the whole goal is to stay in alignment with that. So we're staying in alignment with the long side for now, clearing the prior, you know, the overnight highs to new highs right now, um, and then the cycle day 3 range high that's fulfilled. But now we have even, you know, further upside, further levels there that the market can certainly push on through, and you know, through the rest of the day. All right. If the market were to reverse back down, you'd want to, you know, kind of similarly, you know, now you want to reference the prior initial high this morning, or near that D level, that zone. So again, if the market kind of pulls back, we're going to be looking for maintaining a bid above that zone. If for whatever reason later on the market decides to, you know, dip below that and then fail to recover, okay, then, you know, you may get some, you know, shifting of the dynamics. All right, but for now, above these prior, you know, the early morning highs, call it the 50 7450s, right, where got to stay with the long lean until there's some sort of a shift. All right, so I'll leave you with that thought to carry forward for the remainder of the day. I'm going to be around for a little bit, but I'll probably be cutting out earlier today. But I'm going to still generally be around today for the most part. All right, so I'm going to cut the stream off there. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll end the stream here, and then we'll reconvene there on Monday.